Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey and from me. Before we get into the meaty stuff, I think I will share one or two pleasurable things with you, because there are three lovely things that have happened to me in the last week, and I would love to share them with you. The first is I attended the Ballet Icons Gala at the Coliseum, which was absolutely wonderful. They had a marvellous programme, traditional and modern dance, and it has to be said, the two make sometimes strange but always exciting bedfellows. They started off with Swan Lake, and they ended up with Le Corsaire. And I have to say, Le Corsaire was absolutely marvellous. The male dancer, Daniel Simkin, is absolutely magnificent. Just so exciting and exuberant and vivid. And the female dancer, Maya Makhatelli, was exquisite. But in fact, the whole programme was wonderful. Marvellous evening. Then, on Tuesday evening, I attended Gyles Brandreth's Oscar Wilde party. Every year, except of course last year because of COVID, he celebrates Oscar Wilde on the 30th of November. It was a really glamorous, interesting evening held at the Grosvenor House. The Lanson champagne flowed brilliantly. There were really interesting guests, people like the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams. He came with his eyebrows. Those of you who know what I mean. He has 2 Basque brooms for eyebrows, quite extraordinary. There was also a bishop who blessed me. I said to him, "Oh, hello, hello, hello. Would you like to give me a little blessing?" And he did. Wasn't that sweet? I love being blessed by bishops and priests. There were loads of other people there, including the Duchess of Cornwall, who was the guest of honour and gave a very good speech, because an ancestor of hers nearly married Constance Wilde. She actually chucked him to marry Oscar. She was on very good form. I did not speak to her personally, I hasten to add, to those of you who think that anything that I would say has any link to her. It doesn't. Just making that point very clearly. Ben Ockery gave a wonderful speech, and so did Simon Armitage, who is the present Poet Laureate. It really was a super glamorous evening. And the last good thing that has happened to me is to receive this book, which will be posted at the end as well. Post Modernity and the Creation of the Anthropocene by Neil Pitts. How our current period evolved out of history and where it is going. This is really the history of history. It's an amazing book. It's very interesting. So those of you who would like to read it, it will be posted at the end. It is available, I know as a fact, on amazon.co.uk. So, having wallowed in a bit of pleasure, shall we go to the more controversial stuff, which I'm sure all of you are going to find absolutely delectable? First of all, the update on the marital troubles. You know, I would recommend that you Google Harry and Meghan's appearance at the Cirque du Soleil. This, if you look at the footage, will give you a real insight as to why some of what is happening in Montecito is happening. Because Harry was clearly distraught that night, clearly in psychic pain, clearly very troubled. Meghan, on the other hand, for one of the very rare occasions that she was smiling, was beaming a genuine smile, with the cheeks beautifully puffed up and the eyes just crinkly enough for you to know that it was sincere. She was the cat that had got the cream. Now, what is really interesting about that date is that is the date that Meghan says that she told Harry just before going to that event that she found the pain of not ever reading or hearing about any of the terrible things that were said about her, because she never read the newspapers and never kept up with anything. But the pain that she didn't see, didn't hear about, didn't know about, but felt, had driven her to the point where she wanted to end it all. Poor Meghan. Well, not even Elizabeth Taylor in Suddenly last summer acted up a storm like of which Meghan did that evening, because it was one of the few occasions upon which she conveyed sincerity. My understanding is, and I don't want to say too much, but I want to give you a little insight as to what I gather is going on in Montecito. Cast your mind back to another event, the Oprah interview, where Meghan says that there were several conversations while she was pregnant with Archie about the child's, the darkness of the child's skin. Harry says that he was the person that had the conversation, and it was before they were married. And he doesn't actually say that it was pejorative the way Meghan says it is. So right there, we don't only have a huge disparity, but this goes public, goes worldwide. And Meghan has continued to weaponize colour to the detriment of the stability of the royal family and the British nation. Now, Harry would have had to be even dumber than the dumbest person who has ever existed, and would have had to have been not the hothead that he is, and not the irrational, quick off the mark, punchy-wunchy that he is. But he would have had to be truly evil to not begin to connect the dots and not begin to realize that she has played him and she is playing the system and she has played the British people and his family. Now, whatever Harry's failings, I do not think that he is evil or maliciously psychopathic. I don't think he is. Everybody who knows him really well doesn't think he is. And of course, with the passage of time and the passage of one act of compassion after the other, slap him once, slap him twice, slap him again, taking place, the scales have been falling off his eyes. Also, the constant control has started to chafe, as it was inevitable it would. The Meghans of this world don't go down without furious fights. And of course, everything is everybody's fault but their own. Poor Meghan. Mickey, our hearts bleed for Meghan, don't they? And may she get her comeuppance sooner rather than later. Some of you seem to think that in my previous video, I predicted that the marriage was going to be coming to a speedy end. I have not predicted that. I'm not a fortune teller. And that's not the information that I was given. The information I was given was that they are having serious marital problems. And I have just indicated one of the serious problems, namely that Harry has finally twigged that there is a level of motivation, shall we say, I need to be careful how I put this, that does not accord with what Meghan presented to him or what she has presented to the world at large. It's very difficult to live with somebody that you thought was wounded and a victim and sweet and sensitive, and then you begin to realize that you are in a Faustian bargain with Niccolo Machiavelli. Not easy to cope with. So, Sarah Duhay says, this could not come at a better time, given the fact that increasingly more countries are ditching the Queen as head of state. More will be leaving, we can rest assured. After all, nobody wants a racist head of state. Funny how this all is happening now. Yes, indeed. I think Sarah Duhay is referring to the fact that Barbados has replaced the Queen as head of state with a president. And while Prince Charles was in Barbados for the handover, so to speak, from one head of state to another, there in America was yet another foray from the Sussexes, bleating about racial prejudice within the royal family. I am, of course, referring to the latest book by somebody called Christopher Anderson, which it has been brought to my attention Meghan's people, and for that we can safely assume it was Meghan, briefed about the racist comment that now Prince Charles is alleged to have made, except of course that in the book Mr. Anderson seems to be suggesting that Prince Charles never made the comment. Well, this is quite mysterious because Harry himself on Oprah said that the comment was made directly to him. Neither Harry nor Meghan has said who made the comment. They have dangerously and viciously, and one could say maliciously and deliberately, kept the subject open so that they can continue milking it for all it is worth. Now, anybody who has a conscience and anybody who has any regard for his family, his heritage, and his nation will be mortified to be used in such a way. Do you begin to see how the problems are stacking up and why they're stacking up? Very funny that it happens the way it happens and when it happens. But I should make a point. Not all of these coinciding as opposed to coincidental happenings are actually calculated to take place at the same time. You know, Harry and Meghan they have a scattergun approach. The bullets are bound to hit somewhere because no matter what is going on at any given time, they are out there fomenting trouble. And they only need to sit back and wait for the trouble to take place, as it does. Sweet Nothings says, Lady C, when Meghan said she cut her hair to look like Andie MacDowell in 4 Weddings and a Funeral when she was 11 years old, and kids bullied her calling her Crust the Clown. Well, Krusty made his television debut on the 15th of January 1989 on the Tracy Ullman short, The Krusty the Clown Show. Makes one wonder how old she is. Not only does it make one wonder how old she is, but Krusty the Clown, I gather, ran. So that is just about feasible. However, 4 Weddings and a Funeral didn't debut until early 1994, by which time Meghan was on the way to being 13. For some reason, she gets stuck on the age 11. Everything happened at the age of 11. Also, it seems to be, as a friend of hers pointed out to me, or I should say a former friend, that Meghan is always at pains to explain away anything African about her appearance. She could not, at the age of 11, have had her hair cut to emulate Andie MacDowell in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, because that took place over 2 years later. But there's always some erasure of fact, some playing with the facts to explain away. And according to this former friend of hers, Meghan has always been very resourceful about de-Africanizing herself. Interesting, no? For somebody who claims to be so in favour of racial harmony that she creates nothing but racial dissension. Susan Hebron says, I am white and gutted. I have been left without a race card to use. How is that fair? I think this is racist in itself. I had to include that for levity. Yes, my dear, everybody is so busy playing the race card, but I think you're not allowed to play it. No, you're only allowed to be pilloried. So I think you need to get the message, you know. You are the beneficiary of all sorts of privilege that, in fact, most Caucasians don't have. But we need to go, if we are going to be woke, with the false rhetoric. Nikki Robinson says, Meghan is self-serving and plays the race card. Big block capitals race card. Our family has Korean, black and white ancestry. We have kids of all 3 colours. We often wonder what the next kid will look like. We mean no harm in it. All of our kids are precious and loved. You, my dear, are one of many people of colour who keep on writing into me, or mixed race, or in a mixed family, who keep on writing into me outraged that Meghan can be continually playing this card. She's done it. She's going to continue doing it. I hope this is a petard upon which she will hoist herself. I think it is not only destructive and mischievous, I think it is evil. Evil. Nona C. says, the author is an American writer who worked for Time, I think she's referring to Mr. Anderson, who worked for Time and wrote also for People magazine. The connection is Montecito, not royal courtiers, besides which British royal courtiers wouldn't be bothering to communicate with an American author. Well, I gather Mr. Anderson is a cut and paste man. I gather he's another messenger like Amid Scabies, you know, the sort of person who'll say anything to sell a book. Oh, and I gather that some of his books are pretty dire. I've never read any, I'd never heard of him before. Oh, the fact that I hadn't heard of him before, I would not have said ranks as praise indeed. You know, in The Princes and the Press, which of course, as we all know, the second part aired this week, and it turned out that they have seriously backtracked. I mean, gosh, I certainly wouldn't have wanted to be on the editorial staff when they were rejigging that programme to make sure that they didn't fall foul of the law and the broadcasting authorities, because the royal family had put them on notice. Well, Amol Rajan was very careful to make the point that who controls the narrative controls the media. This was the theme that he kept on harping upon. And his justification for what really is the vicious and malicious lies that Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, have told, is that they're getting on top of the narrative, and that Meghan got very upset when she was accused of making Kate cry. Well, my recollection is, and I received this information from staff at Givenchy who were there at the rehearsal, Meghan made little 3-year-old Charlotte cry. Interesting. But you see, when you're dealing with false information, and you're dealing with liars, brazen, pathological liars, you're being bombarded with false narratives so that they will smell of roses. Well, let's see how Meghan comes out smelling at the end of it all, because I have another little bit of news for you. A little birdie has whispered in my ear a little information about the investigation. Meghan, but I'll hold that till I come to it, because it's a part of another sense, a question. Marley says, Dear Lady C, I very much hope you can clear something up once and for all. Diana was stalked by the paparazzi and the press. There are pictures of Kate being harassed by photographers the way they did Diana. Certainly are. Meghan got none of that. No, she didn't. Absolutely none. In fact, on only one occasion was she papped. None. Yet, Harry and Meghan claim that the press was too much to deal with. What on earth are they referring to? She got the most positive publicity, and as she moved in with him pretty much from the get-go, she was never exposed. Well, Meghan and Harry's dissatisfaction with the press, and it's Harry's as well. Harry hates the press, wants to control the press. Harry has a great deal of anger and a really rather violent streak in his nature. And if this could be re-diverted into something rather more positive, it would simply be passion. But he needs to reroute the river, so to speak. Well, in the meantime, Meghan has played upon Harry's sense of importance and unimportance, because Harry has always resented not being equally important, or indeed more important than William. And Meghan has played upon this brilliantly to create all sorts of havoc, not only within the royal family and the British scene generally, but within Harry. These are one of the chickens that will be coming home to roost. Cluck, cluck, dear Megsy baby. Her and his dissatisfaction from the word go was that the press were not being sufficiently adulatory. and that the royal family was not allowing them to wallow in the positive publicity that they'd been getting and ratcheting it up a notch or three, so that they would be the greatest stars who had ever lived, and they would eclipse all other members of the royal family and be on the front pages of the newspapers and in the media 24/7, 365 days a year, which of course is what they've been trying to achieve through Sunshine Sacks. That was the start of the disaffection. Inevitably also, and I speak with authority on the subject, I've been in the public eye, and in fact I've been suing newspapers long before Harry and Meghan were ever born. So I think I can speak with a certain amount of authority on what it's like to be a public figure who was also maligned. I'm here to tell you that no matter how adulatory one paper is about you or one organ of the media, another one is going to try to leaven the loaf. That's just how they function in Britain. I went into it in great detail in my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, so I could place the whole thing in its proper context, and that it's nothing to do with Harry and Meghan themselves. This is just the way the British press functions. They wanted to dictate to the press how it should function. They tried to get the Queen and the Prince of Wales to intercede on their behalf, to force the press to do what they wanted. And the Queen and Prince Charles quite rightly refused to do so. Their dissatisfaction lies in the fact that not only did the press not be adulatory enough, but that on the odd occasions when the press tried to reel them in, and there were very few occasions on which they tried to, because the negative publicity that Harry and Meghan got in the early days of their marriage was minimal compared to anything that Catherine had got, Diana had got, I had got. And I'm not even a member of the royal family. But that's what happens when you're a member of the aristocracy as well. It's just par for the course. So they decided they were going to change the whole of the system. They were going to get rid of the British press, and they've tried to do it. They've tried to do it. They're now, having moved to America, they're now trying to, having got a hold, incidentally, of the American media, because they really do have the American media by the short and curlies. Having done that, they are now trying to shut down the internet. I mean, does this not strike you as the grossest form of egotism, not to mention total lack of respect for freedom of speech? First Amendment, which of course we all know Harry and Meghan both think is bonkers, and all those things that they find despicable, because anybody who dares to say anything that's not adulatory about them is supposed to be crushed or at least silenced. The Vicarage says, Lady C, Harry said in the engagement interview that he didn't sign a prenup. In the event of a divorce, could she financially take him to the cleaners in California? My dear, why do you think they're in California? They're in California not only for Meghan to pursue her dreams of stardom and being a big cheese in Hollywood. Sorry, something which she has never been and still isn't. However, can't knock her for trying. She's certainly trying. But because Meghan twigged very early on, most likely before the wedding ring was on her finger, that as if and when the marriage came to an end, she would walk with no money to speak of, as long as they were in Britain. That required departure. Oh, H. The press, which I never read, just made me feel I can't go on. But I'm going to go to the Cirque du Soleil this evening, and I'm going to beam deliciously and happily while you look miserable because you've been dumb enough to buy the lie. Marina Perkins says, Dear Lady C, thank you in advance for answering my question. Would it be possible that Markle, in her adamant, ruthless and very calculated efforts to bring down the royal family and being obviously supported heavily by the wokes, is a spy, in quotation marks, on another country's payroll and placed specifically to infiltrate the royal family in order to eventually create a massive anti-royal unrest that would bring the monarchy down? They have been certainly spreading rumours, racism, infidelity, etc., against Charles and William that cannot be proven, but tarnish the royal image greatly. Maybe some countries like New Zealand or even Canada would like to break off, just don't want to do it with their own hands. Thank you. Do I agree? Actually, Marina Perkins, that's a really interesting line of thought, but I don't agree. I think Meghan is vicious and malicious, nasty and ambitious, all on her own, with no help from anyone. I don't think she was planted by any state. I think she hustled those buns the way she's been hustling them all her life. And she's been working her feminine wiles in a very feminine way because remember, she's a feminist. And feminists need to know not only how to do things vertically, but horizontally. And to use all the tricks of their trade to advance themselves. And she has done it. She has done it very successfully. And it is obvious how she has done it to those of us who've been told what she did. Mickey has come to rejoin us. Oh, yes, Mix. I don't think she's a plant. I think she's infiltrated and planted herself. I think she is as vicious and malicious as if she had been a spy. As if she had been a traitor. I think she has betrayed the British nation. I think she has betrayed the British royal family. I think she has betrayed everyone who wished her well. I think she is a traitor, but I don't think she is a spy. No, but she's an independent, she's an operator, she's a hustler, and she knows how to hustle those buns. The problem being, because she wasn't authentically what she presented herself as being, having been given one of the greatest opportunities in history to do good, she has done what has turned out to be practically nothing but harm. Hi, baby girl. Yes. For Al says, sounds to me like the megalodon is trying to get Charles to step down or be forced out of the line of succession, and then perhaps she can have her heart's desire. That one plane crash away from the throne moment. Do you think this could be the case, Lady C? Now, that's a rather more plausible alternative to the previous question. One has to ask oneself, why has Meghan deliberately introduced doubt into the Prince of Wales's motives when the Prince of Wales has an exemplary record through the Prince's Trust and all his other work of racial harmony, of trying to unite peoples, of trying to do good for all different sorts of people, including and especially the disadvantaged of all races. Why has Meghan briefed against the Prince of Wales? Because make no mistake about it, she has briefed against the Prince of Wales. She started briefing against him with Oprah. The Christopher Anderson book is just another one of the many briefings against the Prince of Wales and Prince William. Do I think she's trying to knock Charles out of the line of succession? I think she's made a study of Diana, and that was Diana's objective. And I think she simply picked up that ball and run with it. If I'm doing her an injustice, it is only because her conduct has led me to this conclusion. So, if what I have said is unjust, she can rectify the situation by behaving in a different way. And until such time as she rectifies the situation, I'm afraid I will have to regard her conduct as being calculatedly destructive. Susan Verrow says, Lady C, I taught aerobics until I was 8 months pregnant, had great flexibility, and there's no way that I could have squatted to the ground. Susan Verrow, I'm absolutely sure that there's no way you could have squatted to the ground, but then you are a woman. You are a human being. Meghan is a goddess. Meghan's been able to do things that no other human being has ever been able to do. Because Meghan is, if not a goddess, a demi-goddess. And it has to be said, Meghan has not only been able to squat, legs tightly closed together at 8 months pregnant in 5-inch heels. Where did that baby go? I wonder. The case of the disappearing baby. Is that a mystery for Agatha Christie to solve? Oh, actually, maybe we should get Miss Marple on the case as well, because there's also the mystery of Meghan arriving at an event when she was inflated with Archie in that red and purple dress and coat with a huge belly. And then she's leaving and the belly has somehow disappeared. Goodness, the case of the disappearing baby. On more than one occasion, the baby just magically disappears. Margaret McGill says, I think Diana had every reason to be paranoid. She certainly did. It turned out she had real enemies. It's called the British Broadcasting Corporation, Martin Bashir and Tony Hall, for starters. It turns out that the paranoid purveyors were the BBC feeding her paranoid fears to get her to do what they wanted. Yes, and they succeeded. I don't understand how the BBC can dismiss their investigation into Martin Bashir's behaviour around the Diana interview and get away with it. Isn't it time they were reined in by those in power and held to account? Yes, it is time that they were. And I think it is a shocking disgrace that the powers that be in this country are not exercising the power that they have to rectify such a gross wrong. It shows a level of corruption that is very discomforting to have to acknowledge. Gillian Forbes says, Dear and lovely Lady C, thank you for your fabulous content. I'm now living for Thursday when the topic is revisited. Well, we've revisited it, Gillian Forbes. Time to twist the knife. Oh, I wouldn't have put it quite like that. Cheers, sipping some champers in anticipation. Glad you are. Please share more of your thoughts on the type of parent you think Meghan is and how she may be relating to the kids. I struggle to imagine it. I so enjoy your stories of your experiences with your mother. She seemed like a very interesting character. She certainly was. Rather too interesting. Much love from South Africa to you and the ever so beautiful Lady Mickey. Mickey. Somebody has sent you love. Mickey's on the ground chewing up her bone. I really hope you read this question on your channel. To hear you say my name would be my Christmas wish. Well, Gillian Forbes, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes. What sort of mother is Meghan? My understanding is that Meghan is very good at aping maternalism and being coochie and sweet again with us, but it's the steel hand in the velvet glove. The Meghans of this world don't make good mothers. What they make is good users of children. I would be very surprised if she doesn't train up one of those two children to be the golden child, while the other one is going to be the scapegoat. If Lily is plain, she stands a chance. If she's good looking, you can forget it. She's toast, in my view. But let's see how it pans out. Because I'm not a fortune teller. I can only go off my knowledge of what that personality type is like as a mother. I was my mother's golden child growing up. And I have to tell you, the love that a mother who is narcissistic gives to her golden child is a poisoned chalice. And as you are sipping from it, and as you are benefiting, which I undoubtedly did in many ways, from the revered and preferred position that you are in, you also know that you better watch out, because if you don't fulfill their every requirement, you too will be cast onto this scrap heap of reject and discard, the way your siblings are, and the way everybody else is. Experience is what teaches wisdom. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and keep the questions coming in. I know I keep on saying it, but it really is true. This can't be done without you. God bless. Bye-bye.